Hi guys, welcome to another online Pieandbelle class. This week we're going to do some colour mixing. We're going to use an original picture and then we're going to adapt the colour as we go across. If you'd like to come to our regular classes in Leighton Buzzard or Dunstable, please look in my bio. The first thing we're going to do is draw our picture across these tapes coming down. So we're going to end up with 3 bookmark sized images at the end of this, and the first image we're going to actually use the colours from this picture, so we're going to just make them as close to this colour as we can. Now, if you're very early at doing colour mixing and you're a real beginner, I would say make the colours as basic as you can. Don't think to put too much into them. But the first thing we're going to do is make a nice sky blue for our first image, and then we're going to do a sunset-y type of image in the second one. So the first one we're going to add the turquoise, and we're going to pad out with some kitchen roll to make our clouds. So all I'm doing is making sure my paint is nice and wet to work with and padding out some clouds there. The second one we're going to do a sunset-y type sky, so I'm going to start with some yellow, go into some pink, and then finish off with a purpley blue. And you can see I'm just letting these colours kind of merge into each other. I am going to pad out a sunshine right in the centre there. I'm not going to put a sunshine in each of these little skies, only in that centre one. And then third one, I'm going to make a nighttime sky. Now, to make your nighttime sky, you just blob on loads of different colours and then surround them with your black, and then add some clean water over the top. Now, you add your stars later with your fine liner, but if you just literally blob them all over the place and then literally come in with some clear water over the top, like this, you will get lovely kind of cauliflower effects, which will look very galaxy-like. It works really lovely and it dries really nicely. So now we're going to get into our actual colours of our image, and the first kind of colours are that mountain in the background, which is kind of a ultramarine blue and a little bit of like a yellowy kind of tone, I used yellow ochre in this. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm going to cross, I'm going to use the colour in its correct form in the first one, so I'm using yellow ochre and blue. And then for the second image, I'm going to move across and just add pink to those colours. And for the third one, I'm going to add either blue or brown because they're my 2 darkest colours. So I'm going to choose which one I feel works the best as I get across. But now you'll see I'm going to use those exact 2 colours I just used, but I'm going to add pink to them. So my yellow will become more orangey pink and my blue will become kind of purpley coloured. So I'll end up with an orangey pink and a purple. And this is simply all I'm going to do. Now, it's not going to be the most accurate picture of if you had a sunset view there, or the most accurate of a nighttime view, but what it will teach you is A, what happens when you add colours to each of these original colours that you've had on the left hand side, and B, it will actually make you start thinking about when you are looking at an image that's in the daytime and you think, actually I'd like to do this image but with a sunset view, you are going to have to adapt all those colours down. You can't just put the sunset in and then keep all the colours the same as they are in the bright daytime, because the colours will be slightly adapted. Same as nighttime. If you wanted to make a picture that you've got in the daytime with bright green grass in the nighttime, that green grass is not going to be as vibrant as it goes along. It's going to get darker because it's obviously in the nighttime sky there's not as much daylight. So you can see this second mountain is similar colours. I kind of made a bit of a greyer blue, but it's got a kind of yellow ochre and a bit of, I still use that vibrant blue. Now this is actually 2 mountains, this bit, but because I'm using fine liners to create those shapes later, I'm not actually overly worried about making it absolutely perfect. And you can see here, I'm literally just adding the colour where I want it, sucking it off if I feel like it's not in the right place, and making my little shapes of mountains. Now you can come in with a second layer, which I think I do a bit later, to add some fine details to any of these points, so you don't have to have it exact in this point. And again, I'm doing exactly the same. I'm adding the pink to the yellow ochre and the pink to the blue as I go across to the second lot of mountains. And you see I've got a much more kind of orangier pink and a purple again. And basically it's just going to give you a really lovely set of 3 images that are all of the same scene, and it's a continuous scene. You can see the mountains joined up together, but it's going to be very strikingly different each one. And also this is a good reference to keep, because obviously you know that the middle was pink and you know that the end was your dark colours that you've added. So you could keep this and know what colour would happen, what will happen if you add a pink or a dark colour to your colours that are on the left. So it is a really fun one in colour mixing. I'm not really overly worried about making a beautiful image that is really detailed this time. It's really more about learning about colours. So as you can see here, I'm literally giving myself a little bit of detail in that background, popping out that front mountain from that back mountain. Just giving it a little bit of highlights. I'm not, like I said, this week definitely, like I was saying to all the people that come to the class, this week definitely isn't about making really detailed images. It wasn't about making wonderful kind of, you know, full of detail pictures. It was much more about learning about what happens when we add different colours and how we can get those dark colours or those kind of unusual colours we'd get at sunset. Now I'm going to start making up my kind of green of the foliage, and as you can see there, I don't use the lemon yellow and the turquoise, which will make my cleanest green, because very rarely do we get that really vibrant green in nature. So I use the yellow ochre, which has got a little bit of a reddy tone in, and I add that just to make that kind of green a little bit more natural and dirty. And all I'm doing is starting at the path at the bottom, which was that yellow ochre colour, and literally just working my way up all the way to the top, so I've got a nice graduated colour going on there. I also used some salt to give myself some texture of the foliage, because really, like I said, it's not about making a really detailed image. We haven't got an awful lot of time in our classes when we're doing them actually in not our online classes but our real classes. We don't have an awful lot of time. So if I'm doing something a little bit complex like this, where we've got 3 images and it's more about colour mixing, then I'm not going to spend all the time doing loads of tiny little details, because I know that people won't get to that point within our class time. So I'm giving them little cheats, like using a little bits of salt and stuff, so that they can make some interesting textures, and then I know that they can always use the fine liners to kind of pick out little details at the end. So again, that was just using the same green and yellow I used for the path and the foliage, but I just added pink to it in that middle bit. And this last one, I'm literally adding a blue or a brown, and this will make our darkest. And you can see I definitely used quite a lot of blue in that. And you can see how beautifully these 3 images work together. It's a really interesting looking picture. Again, we're not worried too much about the drawing aspect, so if you're someone that hasn't got the best drawing abilities, this is a really fun one to play around with the literal kind of watercolour aspects, where we're kind of learning about colour and how the watercolours work on the paper rather than the actual drawing. I mean, the most drawing we do in this one is this, which is like our literal kind of little cacti that we're putting in. This is the most you have to actually kind of draw something, and you can see how my salt has made those really interesting shapes there, so I'm going to use them as kind of tumbleweedy little foliage plants going on. And you can see how I am just giving myself a little bit of kind of a base for those cactus to be sitting on, so they don't look like they're just floating in the middle of nowhere. So what I'm doing is just applying a little bit of colour and then just washing it out. And I'm making these salt shapes at the front be my bush that goes around my pathway here, so it's just a little bit of foliage coming on. And I'm literally just using them as an idea of where they start and adding some little leaves and texture around. And again, with the cactus are dark green there. And when I come on to the next bit, I will literally just add a pink to them, and they'll turn into a more browny colour. And at the last one, I'll add a blue or a brown to them and make them a deeper colour. So, like I said, this isn't accurate. This isn't exactly what would happen in nature. You're not going to get these exact colours, but all we're learning about is what happens when we add colours, because it's really interesting to start learning about colour mixing and what happens with each colour, how it adapts, how it changes, and how you get those kind of unusual mid-toned colours, like that kind of plummy colour or that khaki green. It's really interesting to start figuring out how to get them and how you would add pink that would make those colours, even though they haven't really got any pink in them. You know, some they have got pink in them, but they don't look pink. They don't look like a pink colour, but there is pink within them, which is what makes them have that kind of strange colour going on in undertone that you can see. Again, I'm doing the kind of base for the cactus to stand on, washing it out with a little bit of water. And here I go again with that kind of bush, and I'm incorporating that salt splat there that's kind of into the bush as well, so it's kind of giving me my own placement of the bushes by putting those salt spots in there. And again, I'm just adding kind of a shadow around where the base of those bushes are, and just foliaging them out and giving myself a little texture on the floor. So if you keep going across, you won't end up potentially with the exact same colours that I have, but basically you'll still be learning anyway. So it's all fun, and it's just a really nice one to learn about how the colours mix. So don't worry if you don't get the exact same tones that I get going on. It's not really about that. You don't need them to be exactly the same as mine. So you wouldn't have to put the black fine liners on if you didn't want to. I only did it because I knew that we'd have people that kind of maybe had the colours all mixed to a very similar colour by the end, so I especially thought that end one, the nighttime one, people might not have the definition that you can see there against the mountain in the sky and the second mountain and the floor, and so I did worry that maybe people would have that and it would all look like one thing. So I did suggest that they could use fine liners to actually like completely get them out so that you could see it. So this is what I'm doing with mine. So look, you can actually outline it and then it's obvious where the mountains are, and you can also get a little bit of detail in that way too, which is really nice. So I outlined all my cactus and I did little bits of kind of the ground, and when I got down to the path I just did some ideas of little stones on the path and a couple of little strokes I think for like grassy bits, and that was it. And again I did that on the second one. I decided to fine line up the sides of mine in the end, but you wouldn't have to do that either if you didn't want to. So I did fine line with a ruler up the edges just to neaten it out. But it's a real fun way of learning about colour and a really fun way of getting a really interesting picture in 3. You could also cut these out and have these as bookmarks if you wanted to, or have this as one picture that you give to someone, or at the front of a card. And you wouldn't have to use a scene that is of a desert. The reason I used a desert scene was because it didn't have an awful lot of drawing. There's not a lot of trees or anything in it. It was just quite a blank canvas, but it was much more about the colour. So I think now all I do is come in with a ruler and tidy up those edges. But again, you wouldn't have to do this if you didn't want to. And I think it works out really well with the white in between. I think it's a really interesting image. So that was our week of colour mixing. Obviously when we're usually doing our normal course, our colour mixing week is a little bit more intense, but this week it was just about kind of playing around with colours and getting an interesting image at the end of it. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys, and I will see you again soon. Okay, bye.